Built by horse players for horse players, AmWager is designed for speed, power, and ease of use. AmWager brings CAW-style tools to everyday horse players, including Dutching, ABC Ticket Maker, and Pro Percent, an advanced betting tool that lets you assign weighted percentages and build multiple structured wagers with a single click. Every month, AmWager turns the odds in your favor with 0% takeout on select tracks. These promos offer you up to $100 more for your winning bets and giving you value for your wagers not offered anywhere else. Rated 4.7 stars on Google with over 200 reviews, AmWager is trusted by horse players who expect more from their wagering platform. If you're looking for better tools and better value, you need AmWager. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit amwager.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 or older where applicable. Gambling problem? Please call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE.
Welcome to the Sport of Kings podcast, episode 348, sponsored by AmWager. Go to amwager.com to see all their promotions, including their 0% takeout promotion for Santa Anita win bets this Saturday. As always, I welcome your feedback on Twitter/X. My handle is @Derby1592. That's @Derby1592. And this week, I am joined by special guest, horse player, and managing partner of 10 Strike Racing, Clay Sanders. The show will focus on finding and exploiting value on Friday's Oaklawn Park card. Note, this was actually scheduled for last Saturday, and they moved the card to Friday. It's filled with stakes races, including the $1 million Southwest Stakes, which is the first big Derby prep of the year at Oaklawn Park. We will talk about our strongest handicapping opinions and how we might leverage those opinions using optimal betting strategies. Hi, Clay. How's it going?
I'm good. It's going good, Chris. Happy to be here and excited to see a fun card at Oaklawn on Friday and a good one on Saturday as well.
Yeah, back to back, thanks to the weather, which has been wreaking havoc on racing cards all over the place. For the last few weeks, probably the worst winter for racing I can think of in quite some time. And Oaklawn Park, because I think it's on a national park or something, they can't put the same sort of chemicals on the track they can at most racetracks to help soften things up. So they're really at the mercy of the weather, especially cold weather.
They really are. And this storm that came through is unique. It laid about 5 inches of sleet that turned to ice in Memphis and in Hot Springs. So it took them a long time to get the track cleared. And it wasn't just like you could just go plow it. It was just thick ice. So I mean, the kids are still out of school here in Memphis, and a lot of the ice is gone. But luckily, my daughter's in a private school. She went back to school on Tuesday, but we all have cabin fever down here.
Yeah, ice is the worst. I mean, snow is bad. Cold weather is bad, but that ice, when the whole world turns into a skating rink, that's like the worst kind of conditions for anything, just about.
Absolutely.
So are you heading to Oaklawn this weekend? Are you going to be there?
I am. I'm going over to play in the live money contest Friday and probably Saturday. I'm driving over tomorrow morning.
All right. Well, hopefully the driving conditions won't.
Yeah, the main roads are fine between here and there, and it's going to be in the 70s tomorrow in Hot Springs, which will be a welcome change to all this.
Good. All right. Well, sounds like it could be a great day for going to the races and betting on them. So good luck, safe travels. And before we get started with the specific races, I'd like to just ask you sort of what's your approach to, picking out races to play or races to look at, and then once you look at them, deciding whether or not you're going to bet on them, and then if you are going to bet on them, how you're going to attack the races from a betting standpoint. So kind of give us your high-level approach.
That's a great question, Chris, and this has evolved a lot over time. I think with the increased CAW play, I've had to become more and more selective in races I play. As far as like overall handicapping, I'm a generalist. I use a lot of different methods. I mean, I think like most people, I'll try to design the race and look at pace. Analyze the favorites and what you think about the favorites. But I'll use lots of different tools. I mean, I use Timeform US, I use Buyers, I use Thorograph and Ragazins. At times, use some computer programs occasionally, trip notes, pass, biases. I mean, I try to use every tool I can to, try to put together, where I see some value. But, over time, you just have to take less shots on goal, especially, I'd like to play in contests and you really try to narrow your opinions down where you feel your strongest opinions are. And then I try to fire hard. I mean, either through win bets or doubles, occasionally exactas. I typically used to play a lot of pick fives. I play less and less of those now because I just don't think the payouts are as good anymore because of CAW play. And I just think the risk reward isn't there like it used to. So I just really try to single in on horses and fire hard at them.
So it sounds like from a betting perspective, you're kind of keep it tight, not the extreme exotics like win, double exacta. Is that what I heard?
That's right. I'll rarely ever play a try, and especially not in a contest. The only way I could see it is if I see a strong under opinion, and I may use a couple of horses in front of it, and key in third. But that's very rare for me.
So you talked about a lot of tools. It sounds like you pull out every tool in the toolbox.
Yes.
That can be good and it can be bad. How do you, because you could get conflicting signals. So how do you use that to zero in on races you want to, take a closer look at or actually bet? I mean, how do you
Well, I mean,
work
you
through
hit
that?
on what's the trickiest part is when you overload too much information. And to me, it comes back to pattern recognition. And I'm looking for things that I either recall using it successfully in the past, different patterns, different setups. I'm just looking for different things that the computers don't necessarily have. Either a private clocker, a different trip note, something that I can have a little bit advantage. But even then, you're just trying to come up with something that the general public either doesn't have or have a stronger opinion than maybe what the market would have, if be a favorite where you think the horse has a higher chance than what the market does. But it's all pattern recognition to me, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
But it sounds like your focus is really trying to find something you think is hidden or buried from the public that gives you value. And you look at as many places, you're looking at every nick and corner and cranny that you can to find something like that, it sounds like.
Yeah, typically, because I mean, most of the stuff is already all priced into the market. So where's your advantage if you're using everything that the market has? And some of it goes back to judgment. I mean, like I can look at some of these races, and I'm curious on some of your picks in these races. I can kind of figure out what I think you're going to pick in the race. Just pattern recognition. I've listened to you. It's almost like an AI. I've listened to you so many times over the years. Like when I'm looking through a race, even if it's not one you guys have covered, this would be a horse that Chris likes because the different things I know that you've said over the years. So
So I got to know. So does that mean you're thinking about playing it or you're going to fade it? I'm just curious.
It depends. And look, sometimes, I've used your horses to win a contest before. And then sometimes I'm like, I don't like it. You're usually going for value and something further out the odds chain. And a lot of times I'm trying to find, lower price horses that I think are, have a higher chance of winning. But, it all depends.
All right, well, good. Well, we'll get a chance to see this in action with some specific races. But before we do that, I like to talk about the betting menu at the track that we were covering. And Oaklawn's kind of different, so it's worth talking about. They have a 17% takeout on win pool, which is about normal. So that nothing unusual there. They're about at what typical tracks charge. But what's interesting for them is for all but a few exotics, they charge the same 21%. So in some cases, that's not good. Like the pick fives now, most tracks have a 15% pick five. So pick fives, that's no bargain. And 21% seems high I'm not going to say it's player friendly, but relative to most tracks for things like superfectas and trifectas or pick threes and pick fours, that's 3 or 4% less than most tracks charge. So, from a wagering standpoint, your pick threes, pick fours, tries, and supers, those more kind of exotic bets are actually priced a little better than most tracks. Win and exacta and doubles are about where everybody else is. So I wouldn't say any of them are really player friendly, but at least you might want to think about pick threes and pick fours and tries and supers versus say doubles and exactas, where typically there's a big spread in the price for those bets. At Oaklawn, they're all the same. And they do have two special bets that are player friendly. Their late daily double, it's a $5 minimum, 15% takeout, and their late pick three is a $3 minimum, 15% takeout. Those are pretty player friendly, and they're probably the best bets from a player perspective on the menu. So I'd encourage you to look at those if you like the end of the card. But I will say Oaklawn Park has no restrictions whatsoever on the CAW teams that Clay's already mentioned. They run wild there. So, that makes it tough. And like he said, you have to be smart, to wager wisely, pick your spots, because those guys are tough and they make it really difficult to find value. So late double and pick three is the way to go. And some of the more exotic wagers probably aren't priced as badly as many of the other tracks. But the CAW teams have to be respected. And with all that in mind, let's get started on the racing, Clay. We're going to cover all the stakes races, and we're going to throw in I think there's an allowance race near the end of the card. I think it's the 9th race. We'll throw that in just because it's kind of squeezed in between the stakes races. So we'll start out with the 6th race. That's the Martha Washington Stakes, going 1 mile and 1/16 for 3-year-old fillies. I guess this is, one of the preps for the preps on the Oaks Trail. Give us your kind of high-level view of this, and then, what your strongest opinions are in this 6th race.
So they actually give us a little easy race here. Only 8 horses. All the other ones are pretty full field. So at least we get a more compact field here to start out with. I think before we start out, just, going back to that ice, I think it's going to be an important part of thinking about fitness for some of these horses. I think it will be an advantage to horses that are shipping in that have not been training at Oaklawn. These horses had to walk the shed row for 9 to 10 days. So I think some of these horses may not be 100% fit that have been stuck there at Oaklawn. So I just wanted to mention that. And I will have used that angle in the past. I think 2021 was the last year they missed that amount of time. And I did the first 2 or 3 days back have some nice scores playing horses that were shipping over some of the horses stabled there. So with that said, I think analyzing or drawing up this race, what stands out to me is looks like quite a bit of early speed in this race, which is not typical for a like a 3-year-old filly race going long, especially as these horses are stretching out. But I think the 1, the 2, the 5, and the 8 all will be going either for the lead or trying to be up close early. So I think that is significant in how you design the race. I think the chalk here, both the 6 Hit Parade with Brad Cox is 2-1, and the 5 Counting Stars with Mark Casse. I don't have a ton of negatives against those 2 horses. I think they're fine. I don't think the 6 is as talented as a typical Brad Cox horse that's on the Oaks Trail. I think she's a little gritty. She fought last time, but I think we've kind of seen the best of her. I wouldn't necessarily be like way against her, but I don't think she's going to be a bargain, especially if she goes sub 2-1. The other Cassie, the 3 Search Party, I was impressed with her race last time. That was impressive. I think she's a horse that's coming. 3-1 is no bargain on her. The horse that I'm really interested in this race, and I'll probably key her some on top, but mainly underneath, especially maybe those 3 horses I just talked about, is the number 4 Spitfire for Kenny McPeak. This horse looks a little. This horse is 15-1. Gets Brian Hernandez, which I think is notable because Kenny has another horse with a lower price that didn't draw Brian. So you got to think that Kenny thinks this is his best shot here. But I think a lot of people are going to ignore this horse because the horse is a little light on figures. But I think at Oaklawn, I've noticed a lot of times these horses don't get bet, and they're looking at the 53-61 this horse ran last time, which is kind of 20 points slower than the main horses in this race. But those horses were earned, 5-6 months ago. Those numbers were earned 5-6 months ago. And with natural progression, I think at this time of year for a horse can put 2, 3, 4 points of improvement per month. And, that gets you 20 points. And if you look at, say, Search Party, at the same time when this horse was running 53-61, this horse was running 52-58 and then improved to an 81 by December. Kind of the same thing. With Hit Parade. So I just think this horse looks light on numbers, but, one at Saratoga, it was a restricted race. So Kenny thought enough of that horse to go there and then puts it in a stake race at Monmouth, going 2 turns. The horse ran well. I think was a little bit against inside on a track that you wanted to be in the 3 or 4 path. Ran pretty well. And then they tried the horse on turf. Didn't necessarily go that well. And they put the horse up. Something may have happened, but the horse looks to be training well at the fairgrounds. And I think from a pace perspective, she's going to be back a little bit off this pace and might be able to take advantage of a duel up front or at least a solid pace. And if she's not good enough to win, I do think she's good enough to run up underneath. And I'll be keying her in exotics under and probably in picks and win bets on top. The number 4 Spitfire.
Yeah, I think you'll get a big price on her. I think she'll go up much higher than 15-1, don't you? That one, I think most people are going to gloss right over. I don't see too many people landing on that horse. Although she did run second, I guess, in a stakes at Monmouth. That might be enough to attract some attention.
Yeah, and with the connections, I don't know how much she's going to get lost, but I do think they're going to come hard for Counting Stars, the 5, and she's probably the most likely winner. She was very impressive last time, but I definitely would have a pretty strong 5-4. And the other thing I didn't mention was McKenzie. I think he as a stallion definitely is better longer, and I think he is a stallion where his horses are going to get better with running, similar to Gun Runner on the 3 Search Party. I just think they get better with time and with distance. So I think that's another feather in that horse's cap.
So I think I heard you kind of say you thought Hit Parade may be a little overrated and you're going to fade that one. Is that fair to say? Or?
Yeah, I think she's going to be overbet. I definitely don't want to not have a 6-4 in an exacta, but I would say I'm against her, but I respect her. If the 3, I think the 3 and 5 are the most likely winners. If they don't move forward, I could definitely see the 6 winning. But I think she's the most exposed of these horses. She's going to be overbet because of Brad Cox. And lately I've been doing well fading these overbet Brad Cox horses and trying to take my value. I mean, he certainly wins his fair share, but I mean, look, he's 1 for 17 at the meet. This isn't his A team. I'm going to try to beat this one.
Yeah, I don't think this horse is that good. I think it's going to get way overbet. So I'm just more. I'm going to turn that into a fade. It sounds like you're a little more reluctant to, but I agree with everything you said. To me, that means I'm not going to bet on that horse, right?
Yeah, I'm not going to have it in a pick 5 at all. But if my 4 runs well and runs second and it comes 6-4, I'm going to be sitting there scratching my head, going, "What am I doing?" I mean,
okay. So you might back it up. Your long shot under that one.
That's right. That's all I would do.
So there is one horse you didn't mention, and I like it's sort of my version of your version, Spitfire. I like Newton Pike quite a bit because this is, I think, the lone closer in a speed-filled race. And the last time this horse ran, it got trounced by Counting Stars, but Counting Stars ran a really good race there. And, this horse could just become closing late and run second again to Counting Stars. And this is something I've noticed a lot of times when a horse gets beat by a horse and they're both come back in the same race, people will fade the one that ran second out of the money. And a lot of times it's just the second best horse in the race, and they'll go with other horses that come out of different races and play them with that horse, and they'll leave the one that ran second in the prior race, and you kind of get value underneath with this kind of horse. So to me, the race shape and the fact this horse, it was only its second start too, and it was first route. There's a lot of room for improvement there. It could maybe even possibly turn the tables on Counting Stars potentially. It has had 3 workouts. You talked about the issues with at the track, but it's got regular workouts, 3 of them in since that last race, since they ran against each other, and it couldn't improve off of that, I think. And it's one of these Mackenzies you just mentioned.
Yep.
Could get better with distance. I know you guys at 10 Strike have used the trainer, Lindsay Schultz, before.
Certainly. And we have a horse with her that if they would have redrawn this race, we would have been in this race that we're going to probably have to go to the Rachel Alexandra with. But Lindsay does not crank her horses. So you're right. This horse has every right to improve. I think this horse is a little bit more exposed with a recent race than the 4, and I think they're going to be similar prices. And one small advantage is the 4 is, working steadily, not missed any gallops down there in New Orleans, whereas the 7, definitely has had to walk for 10 days. So small little differences there. But no, I think from a pace perspective, especially if it heats up, you're right. This is one that has the best late kick.
Yeah, I wasn't so much saying the horse is going to win, but especially if some of these horses are a little short and they're distance challenged, and you got a horse who's probably going to relish the farther they go, the better it'll get. And it's very lightly raced. I mean, it just had that one sprint start, and then it caught a monster in its second start, and still ran second. I just thought that horse is the kind that could get overlooked because the connections. It's not a Brad Cox or a Kenny McPeak or Steve Asmussen. You might get a big price and you might get value in that exactly. Like I said, a lot of times people won't play that horse, coming out of that same race with the favorite. So anyway, that's the only thought I had in there was Newton Pike was kind of interesting.
I like that.
All right. So we're going to skip over the 7th race and go to the next stakes race on the card. And then that's the 8th race. This is a older horses, a Sturt Stakes race going 9 furlongs. I think one thing nice about 9 furlongs is they don't use that. They use the real finish line, right? One thing I hate about Oaklawn is that it's just like Keeneland. They use that short stretch finish line, which I don't like at all.
Yeah, they only use it on the mile races, which they don't ride too often. But yeah, it's those mile races you get that really short stretch.
And so it looks like a pretty wide open race. What do you think about this one at a high level? And is there anything that caught your attention that you have a strong opinion about?
Yeah, so I guess the first thing we have to address here is probably the most likely winner and logical favorite, Sir Greyland, does he run in this race?
He's scratching, supposedly.
Well, so here's the deal. Normally at Oaklawn, if you re-enter a race, this horse is re-entered for a race on Saturday. However, that race on Saturday was written to try to get Sandman's race to go as an N4X. My gut tells me this race is an easier spot, that they're going to let Sir Greyland run here, and they just entered him there to get that race to go. That's just a theory, but typically you're right. If you re-entered, you are not allowed to run, but since it's a stake race, they give horses a little bit more leeway, and I think they were trying to get that race for Sandman. So it would not shock me if Sir Greyland shows up, and we can look at the race with him in it and with him without it.
Well, just a note though, in the DRF article on the race, it said he will be scratched according to his trainer Kenny McPeak.
Okay.
So they said that in DRF. Now maybe maybe that's not true, but that.
Yeah, I texted a couple trainers this morning and was asking them about that, and they all had some backstretch theories and scuttlebutt. I have no idea, but if Kenny said he's going to run, it just to me makes no sense that he would run, in that much tougher spot on Saturday when he's going to be, probably 8 to 5 in this spot. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just
But that's what they
seems.
say. Yeah, and the purses are about the same,
I
really.
know, right? But
All
who
right.
knows? So we'll see him he scratches, but just pointing that out to people.
But
He's
if he goes, he's a contender, right? He's probably not value, but he's a contender.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, he
Yeah.
may be up against it a little bit from a pace perspective because it just doesn't appear like there's a lot of pace in this race. But from a talent and quality, I mean, he would seem to be the main horse in here. But so what I thought were the two interesting horses in this race were these 3-year-olds that just turned 4 that look like they may have the upside. And then I think they're at least the 3 is going to be bet because of that in the impressive race last time. Super Cruise for trainer Ray Ashford. He's having quite the meet at Oaklawn for a trainer I don't know if I'd heard of 6 months ago. But he looks like he's got quite a few horses. I think they're going to try to bet that horse. But the other 3-year-old turning 4 that I think that has the upside is Energize, the Godolphin horse for Mike Stidham. And, I mentioned that it doesn't seem like there's going to be a lot of pace. With Saez on board, he's always aggressive out of the gate and tries to, grab position. And I think if nobody goes, he may just kind of inherit the lead, which might be a huge advantage against this group. But I just think this horse is kind of the now horse. He's been improving. If you draw a line through that low number, I don't think it was that bad of an effort. From a time form, it wasn't that bad, but, a step back from a buyer perspective to an 82, probably didn't really want to be on the synthetic. I take it as a good sign they're putting him back on dirt here right away. That race at Churchill, kind of sitting back behind a slow pace, I thought it was very impressive. Just seems like the slow developing Godolphin horses that, 3 turning 4 looks like they're set to make a step forward. He's training well down at the fairgrounds with a bullet 3 back and hasn't missed any training. So I just think he may have an advantage going a mile and 1/8 against this group.
Yeah, he seems. I'm not sure you'll get 8-1 on
No,
him,
especially not without Sir Graylin.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't. He certainly seems to be capable of winning. And you said both those horses, Super Cruise and Energize, seem like contenders in here. I don't know if there'll be much betting value there, but they probably seem like the most likely winners in here, I would think.
Yeah, and if you're looking for another horse that from a price perspective, number 7 Macman for Matt Shire. This horse, the numbers on Thoroughgraph sit really nicely compared to the rest of this group, or even maybe the best in the group. Matt's kind of an underrated trainer. We use him. He's a good young trainer, and I think this horse is pretty talented. And I don't know if he's necessarily going to win, but I'll definitely be using him under.
Yeah, he does make sense. There's no reason. I mean, he's pretty consistent too, and he's in good form. I mean, if you throw out the sloppy track race,
yep.
In this most recent form cycle, his other 2 races are really good, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. The one other horse, the older guy that I think fits and may, if based on the morning line anyway, he looks like he might get overlooked is Creative Minister. That guy has run plenty of races in his career that could win this, I think, and he seems to be in pretty good form coming off a win. He just got claimed. I just call it a neutral claim.
Right.
But certainly he seems to fit. If he's 20-1, that seems like there's a little bit of value there to me.
Absolutely, another horse that makes some sense underneath. The thing that made me I looked at him a long time. I thought that, that not having a win at a mile and 1/8, that maybe he's just a little better, shorter, but he definitely makes some sense and good hard knocking horse that always tries.
Yeah, the pace probably isn't the greatest for him, but he's not. I mean, he's been running a lot of his races were against much better horses than these. Back it looks like he's kind of a closer, but he was in races with, a lot faster horses back in some of those races, I think. So, I don't think he's going to be that far behind in here. And I thought he looked like he was pretty sharp in his last race. The barn change, you never know. That could be a good thing or a bad thing off the claim. But I kind of like the way they spotted him in a place where I think he's competitive and it'll be a price.
Yeah, I agree.
But this race is kind of, there's several others we haven't mentioned that probably are contenders as well. I mean, it's probably a pretty wide open race.
Yeah, I mean it's a wide open race. Obviously, the Kenny's other horse, First Division. I don't like the post, and I think the horse ran well last time. Could certainly do it. David Jacobson's always scary with some of these horses coming in here. That horse makes sense. Ran away again. I just thought that Energize is the horse that if you're going to go thin here, that's kind of the horse. I can make a case, like you said, for a lot of these gun party for Steve Asmussen. He's got some races on his form that could win this. I just wanted to go with the now horse that I thought had the most upside.
Yeah, and I can't argue with that horse. It just, I was a little surprised maybe you didn't like MacMan at 10-1 better than Energize at 8-1. You just think the upside's there with Energize, huh? That's it.
Yeah, I just think we've seen what MacMan is. I think if he can trip out. I just think Energize might be a horse that is a tier below like the Grade 1 dirt routers, but is competing in those Grade 2, Grade 3 dirt races this coming year. Just might be a horse that we everybody knows middle next year or this year.
Yeah, it makes sense. He hasn't really faced good horses, but he looks like he has the upside for sure. I mean, I just think, MacMan's last race was, I think, pretty good. I mean, behind Rattle and Roll, who's going to the Saudi, and Willie D's has been pretty good this year. So that was a pretty strong race that he ran third in. That's probably as good a race as he's ever run.
Absolutely. No, I mean, he's the value. I mean, if Energize is going to go off at like less than 3-1, or I mean, even 3-1 probably doesn't have a lot of value. And if MacMan stays anywhere around there, I could easily flip my bet over to MacMan.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking from a value standpoint. He may be twice the price. And I don't think he's probably run as good or better than Energize ever run. He just doesn't have the upside, like you said.
Yeah.
Energize,
Yeah.
he could be much better than next year. Whereas MacMan, like you said, he's probably what he is right now. He's in good form.
Mm-hmm.
And if he repeats his last race, he could win in here, but he's probably not going to get much better, if any at all, in the future.
Yep, I totally agree.
All right, so interesting race. So what do you think the bet is in there? You're going to focus on Energize. Hope you get a decent price. That's where you're going to focus probably on that one.
Yeah, I mean, if right now, I mean, we haven't looked at the 9th yet, but I would imagine I have a strong opinion. I really think there's a short price horse that's going to romp in the 9th. And I'm either going to play a double in or out of that race, and maybe both. But I could easily see me on a ticket having both the 7 and 8 playing a double into the 9, and probably some kind of exacta. With 7 and 8, potentially a little under with the number 3 Super Cruise.
All right, so we'll talk about that 9th race then. It sounds like that one you're going to be going with the chalk, who's the 5 Vital Mind. You think he's a standout? Is that what we're coming from?
Yeah, I just think a lot of these horses in here are your typical hard knocking horses that have been, either in claiming or knocking around the allowance and not really busting through. Then you've got this number 5 Vital Mind that is, was $600,000 horse that was meant to be a really good horse. Kind of got off to a late start, but I mean, has done nothing wrong in his last 2 starts, running an 84 Beyer 115 time form, caught a loose horse in his first try M1X, slow pace, and got second, but improved both the Beyer and his time form number. And I just think, similar to that Energize, I just think he's the now horse. He's got the right to improve. I think you're getting a rider upgrade from Rosario to Ortiz, and I just think this is your most likely winner in the sequence. So I'll be putting a lot through this horse.
Yeah, it's an allowance sprint, 6 furlongs, and you said Vital Mind. He'll be making his 4th start, 3rd start in this form cycle, coming off a big effort in his last. It wasn't a winning effort, but it was a strong effort. And you're thinking, he still has upside and making only his 4th start, and he's already fast, and he's one you're going to lean on. It sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, I just think he's facing horses that aren't of his caliber. And, he's got enough versatility. I mean, there's a decent amount of speed outside of him in this race where, Ortiz can break and see those horses outside of them what they're doing. And if they're grabbing or not sending hard, he'll go to the front. If not, he's just going to sit right behind them and trip out. I mean, I just think this horse is going to progress. Third start in the form cycle. He ran a race that probably would beat, I mean, you look on a time form number, it would beat anybody in this field. And I think he's going to run better. And that wasn't an optimal situation. He was in chase mode behind a horse that was loose. That, he was the only one that was making up any ground on that loose leader. And I just think he's the better horse in here, the better animal. And I don't think the price is going to be great, but, I think this is a spot, one of the rare spots on the card where you can really put all your chips in on the table.
All right, so you're going to be leaning hard on Vital Mind. So I'll throw out a few horses I think might be able to challenge him. Maybe not. I do agree he's the most likely winner, and he probably is one of the more likely winners on this sequence, which is tough. Like you said, there's a whole bunch of big fields that we're talking about. But there's one horse that did catch my eye in here as potential challenger, and that's the 10 horse Hem. That's Hem as a Hymn. This horse, I always like horses that win impressively on debut, which he did. And that was as early as a 3-year-old year. So they kind of were obliged to put him on the Triple Crown trail. And he's by Mackenzie, like you said, who tends to have, decent distance breeding. So it made sense, although the mare was more of a sprinter type. And they put him on that Derby trail, but just couldn't finish off his races. He was forwardly placed, either on the lead or pressing it, and just couldn't get it done. They gave him some time off over the summer. They brought him back sprinting, and I not surprisingly to me, he ran much better in that comeback effort sprinting. Couldn't quite catch the winner, but it was off a slow pace, and it was just really hard to catch the winner in that race, I think. So I thought that was a good comeback effort. Then he caught a sloppy track, and then his last race was another one where he just first of all he was off Lasix for the first time. And it was one of these slow pace races where he just never got into some trouble. I thought that was a no chance trip. They give a really good rider switch, I think, here back to Luis Saez, who's ridden him before. I think he'll be more forward. He won't have to be on the lead, and this is a pretty hot pace race. I think he could get a good trip, and I think he has a lot of upside. I mean, given the way he ran on debut, I think there's a lot of talent there, and the way he ran on his comeback effort after they freshened him up, I think he could be sitting on a big race.
Yeah, that was with Louis, and you're right. That's the one race that probably puts him in contention. If he can run back to that race, he could probably run with the favorite here, assuming the favorite doesn't step forward.
Yeah, he might even run well and still get beat by Vital Mind.
Yeah.
That could happen, but I think his last two races aren't representative of the talent, and that the race before that is, and there's no reason to think he couldn't improve off of that, given the way he ran on debut. And he gets the Lasix back on here, and he gets his rider back on here, and he gets a pace set up here. He hasn't had he's been in some really ridiculously slow paced races on the non-sloppy track races he's had in his comeback sprints. So I think he could get a completely different setup in here and run really well. So that's a horse I'm thinking is the value in here. And I would probably be, boxing him with Vital Mind as well. That was the one.
I got no knocks on that opinion.
And the only other horse I just throw in as a contender, probably not at the same level as the other two, is the 4-horse Hailstrom, who's another one who I think could take advantage of a fast pace and really had a bad trip last time out. Totally excusable effort, and his races prior to that were probably fit in here. So he's the other one. He's 12-1 in the morning line. That seems kind of high. I don't think he'll be 12-1, but that one is the other one I might include if I were to play some vertical bets in here.
Makes sense.
All right. Anything else on that? So your bet here is you're just going to lean on Vital Mind in doubles, and anything you playing that goes through this race will be Vital Mind, right? That's kind of where you're
Yeah,
on this one.
yeah, and I might throw a little saver with your exacta. I mean, I can get behind that idea.
You can start singing that hymn.
Yeah, if that exacta comes in, I might be singing a hymn for
All
everybody.
right. All right. Okay. So let's move on to the 10th race. Now we're back to the stakes races. This is a sprint stakes for older horses, I think. This is an older horse sprint.
Yep.
Another interesting race. What are you thinking on the 10th?
Yeah, I think this is an interesting race. I guess got to look at the favorite here, Blue Fire, a Louisiana bred. It's coming up here to step into open company. She's done well before in the Eight Bells, ran second, so obviously has some talent to her, some quality to her. I think she's going to be bet heavy. I'm not way against her, but I just don't know if that's a horse I'm going to bet on at a short price. If I was going to take a shorter price, I kind of like Fogua a little bit better, working well. This horse ran well both for Asmussen and then into the Maker Barn. I really liked that last race. Thought it was impressive. Fired two bullets out of that race. I think she's a legit contender. But the horse that interests me the most from a value perspective is a fellow Archie bred, number 4, Hush It Honey, for Randy Morse. This horse fires well fresh, so this little time off from her last race and some of this time off from training might help her. But she's a 4-6 in the win end at Oaklawn and 4-6 for the distance. She's training well. I think she could sit right behind. I think Blue Fire, the Louisiana bred, is going to be in front, and I think this filly can. She's tactical. She can be up close or she can sit far back. So I just think she's going to give Rafael Beirano quite a few options. But I just think she fits against these on all the numbers I look at. If she's at 10-1 and overlooked because she's an Archie bred, I mean, I don't mind her. And there's no one in here that really scares me. I mean, there's several in here that can win. I mean, I think the 12 on the outside from Dallas Stewart, Tap It Quick is interesting. Sias Sticks has run. I think she's maybe a little better underneath, but she's run figures that work. And I just think this is an open race, and I like the value on 4 Hush It Honey.
All right, interesting. So, how are you thinking of betting this race then?
So, I will probably in doubles. I will probably do some kind of with the favorite from the last race, the Asmussen, into. I don't know how I would Dutch it, but probably a little bit more favored toward the 4. But for on a price perspective, we'll have to weigh it a little bit. But I think I would just mainly key the 4 and the 5, Fogua and Hush It Honey. In individual race bets, I really like Tap It Quick under, so I'll probably try to get her involved with the 4 and 5.
Wow. So yeah, and those verticals you could really score if you got the 4 and the 5 with 12. I'll offer one other opinion on here that a horse I like quite a bit is the 2-horse Harbor Springs. If you look at this horse's form, she's running routes and sprints, and clearly she's better sprinting, I think, and they've kind of figured that out. Although they did route her once again last year, and that put her on the shelf for a while. But on a fast track, she also likes fast tracks over, tracks with moisture in them. And I thought her comeback effort off the layoff on a good track, which she probably didn't like, she made a nice little move. I thought it was a really good comeback effort. Now she goes second off the layoff after that nice prep, and she's hopefully going to catch a fast track on the dirt sprinting, which is her game. She's been really consistent in that area, and I think just running her race could win it. And there's no reason why at a big price she couldn't get the job done. So to me, Harbor Springs is the value in here.
Yeah, she's interesting. That would probably drive Marshall crazy for looking at Lucky rather sprint than route. He would be doing the same thing, trying to stretch it out, and the horse wants to sprint.
Yeah, but if you look at it, it's hard to make a case for it as being a sprinter. It
Yeah,
seems to much prefer. I mean, being a router, it seems to much prefer sprinting.
yeah.
So,
The only other horse I'll mention to at least give people some color is the number 3 Pistol won last time at 54-1 for Tom Vanberg. I was watching her train last month with Tom, and he mentioned that they put a extension blinker on her, and it made all the difference in the world. On a trip note, she was with the track that day, which helped her win that 3X, which was a really difficult race. But I think this filly has more talent than she's shown in the afternoon, and maybe that blinker change unlocks some extra effort for her.
yeah, and even in her past races, she's had a few good races before. That wasn't like
Mhm.
the out of nowhere kind of race either. So, I mean,
Right.
for recently, she hadn't run very well, but in the past, she's had some decent races. So, yeah, I could see that one as a possibility. Anything else on that one? So you're going to go for it here. You got the
Yeah.
4 is your big price play, and even the 12 as well,
Yep.
and then the 5's the shorter price. But you're going to try to
Yep.
beat Blue Fire, though it sounds like.
I'm gonna try to beat her. I mean, I don't have a ton of reasons to against her. I just think she's gonna be up against a little bit more talent of a horse in here. I don't know if she's gonna get away with fairly slow pace, which I think is what she's gonna need. And I think she's gonna get bet with Asmussen Ortiz and that win last time. But would it shock me if she wins? No, absolutely not.
Yeah, she seems like she'll get bet down well below 5-2. She's kind of
Yeah,
obvious to me.
yeah,
But she's also good
yeah.
and
She is.
consistent. So, but you're right. She hasn't really faced a hot pace since she came back off the layoff. And it does seem like there's some horses like the 7 in particular that
Mhm.
can help push the pace early and maybe force her out of her comfort zone. So,
Yep.
yeah, that's what you got to kind of hope for in here.
Yeah, and I don't follow the fairgrounds as much as Oaklawn, but Oaklawn is really not conducive to wire jobs. So I just think it's going to be hard for her to wire this. I think she's going to have pressure, and it's just not a track that maybe it changes because of this weather or whatnot. But typically, just not one where you can really wire them at the 6 furlong distance.
Yeah, it seems like she's going to have to chase the 7, and that's probably what she'll do, sit
Mhm.
off her flank, but they'd probably be going pretty fast, you would hope.
Yep, I agree.
Okay, so that takes us to the big race. $1 million prep for a prep for a prep. Only in horse racing can you get this. The modern day, racing purses make no sense whatsoever, but this is $1 million race. And I guess for $1 million, you can fill the field. And they have the number 5 litmus test for Baffert did not ship. So it won't be 14, it'll be 13 horses, but they're all trying to get the big bucks there, $1 million in purse money and Kentucky
Points.
Derby points, and what would be the first really big prep for the Oaklawn. There's 2 more. They've got the Rebel and then the Oaklawn or Arkansas Derby.
Yep.
So this is the prep for the prep for the prep for the prep, and it's $1 million. So what do you think about this race?
Well, so obviously a big field, and horses starting out in the 13 hole. There's going to be a lot of early pace because you just can't be hung wide at Oaklawn. If you're anywhere further out than the 3 path at Oaklawn, you really have no chance. So I think that's just going to heat it up for this race. So you can start out, you got to look at this number 2 Decode. And, watching that first race of his, I mean, you couldn't help but be impressed. I don't care if you don't like him here in this spot, but he ran incredibly well. Obviously, they thought enough of him. He was a buyback from the breeder for 775,000 as a 2-year-old, and he just freaking just crushed that field first out. Um, he's a Speightstown out of a twirling candy at a short price that's going to have a lot more pace pressure than he got the first time out. And I mean, Chris, what do you think this horse is going to go off at? Sub 2-1? I mean,
I don't know, because just the Bob Baffert factor with the 3. I mean, he's dominated these races for a long time. I think
he has,
those
and
2 will
and
compete.
those two are both going to be short, and that's the horse I was going to look at next. Is you got to analyze those two because they're going to take a vast majority of the betting
Yeah.
money in here. Bob has had very poor record in the Southwest. I don't know if he's won it, but I know his last three were poor efforts as sub even money at gaming there either last year or the year before. He's not sending his, everyone remembers him winning all these races of the Rebel and the Derby. That's when he's sending his A team. This is not his A team here. This horse, is the fastest outside of the two on numbers. He's got to stretch out. A Tiz the Law at a forestry mare. I mean, there's some question marks. He's been getting out in his races, at a short price. That's not a horse for me either. So I'm just not a huge fan of the 2 and 3, which then, opens it up to, well, who do you like? And, to me, there's nobody that really jumps off the paper. I don't love anybody in here, but a couple of horses that, I'll definitely be interested in using I'll start with the number 4, Rancho Santa Fe for Brad Cox. This is not his first string either, but I mentioned earlier you can't be wide on the first turn. This horse was 4 wide, 5 wide. You can't do that at Oaklawn, so I really think that it was a line through that race. You get the biggest jock upgrade in horse racing going from Flo to Flavian Pratt. And I don't think it'll be 15-1, but I don't think he's going to be heavily bet because of that poor race last time. So that's definitely a horse that I want to keep on side. The 9, Strategic Risk, definitely has had 2 perfect trips in a row. Those are not horses I really like to bet, but with the fast pace, I think this horse is incredibly versatile, tactical. He's one of the rare horses that can really accelerate on the dirt. I think he's going to trip out. He's definitely not going to be a price that I'm really crazy about, but not a horse I really want to beat either. The value horse, in my opinion, is the number 11 Silent Tactic. I thought this horse last race, first time on dirt, coming in for Cassie from Canada, had run solid on the Poly. Definitely, they think is a router because every race has been 2 turns out of Tacitus, out of a gun runner mare. Chased a really slow pace that is stablemate won the Strategic Risk I just talked about, and was really the only one that made up a lot of ground in that race. Was wide, just did not get a great trip, and was only beaten 4 lengths. I think this is a horse that should get better with time, should get better with more pace to chase, and it's going to be a big price. And I think is as likely as any of the others outside of the 2 and 3. And I think you get paid if this horse can hit the board, and especially if he wins.
So Silent Tactic is the horse.
Yeah, that's what I like the most. I mean, the ones I want to use in playing picks is going to be the 4 Rancho Santa Fe, the 9 Strategic Risk, and the 11 Silent Tech. I think if the 2 or 3 don't win, I think you can make a case for a lot of these. A lot of people are going to be spready. I want to be fairly thin. I know 3 is not necessarily thin, but I think those are the 3 that interest me. I mean, the number 7 for Kenny McPeak was second last in the stake. I think that horse is going to get bet more because of the scratch and Kenny and BJ. I just think horse is going to be over bet for what the horse is, but that horse makes a lot of sense too.
Yeah, Liberty National is one that Kevin Kilroy was high on. I think he scratched out of the race we talked about at the fairgrounds or something. So he thought he. So how are you thinking of betting it then? So you got 11, 4, and 9, and you're fading the 2 big favorites?
Yeah, I think in the you mentioned that my favorite bet at Oaklawn's been that late pick 3. I'm definitely going to key those 3 in that late pick 3. We're not going to talk about the last race, but there's probably 2 horses I'll get singled up or narrowed down to in the last race. From an intra-race perspective, I'm going to assume I think the 2 or 3 are both going to be up front. I know the 3 hadn't been up front in the sprints, but it's a Baffert going long. I think he's going to want to be forward. And I'm kind of assuming this is a little bit of a meltdown race. Baffert tends to get some of these races to melt down. So I'll probably play the 2 and 3 off the board and use some of these, the ones I mentioned, plus, the McPeak. I don't know. Probably just use those in my exactas, and try to get the favorites off the board. They're going to be taking a vast majority of the money. I mean, that's how I'm going to try to extract value.
Yeah, well, I would think if both of those horses finish off the board, you'll get paid, right? In the
Mhm.
any of the verticals,
Yep.
regardless of how it comes in. So yeah, I mean that I think that you've got a really strong opinion in this race. I think fading both those is big, and
Yeah.
also in any of the picks like the late double or pick three, even you're going to get a lot of value.
Yeah, I mean, look, the chance that there's a chance that Decode is just as far superior. I think he's the best animal in here. I think he's a grade one horse, but I think it's going to be grade one sprinting, and we're going to see him in the races at Saratoga, for all the money. But I personally don't think this horse can route. But if he does route, I mean, and he can hold that speed going long, I mean, we may be having a horse that's going to be one of the top five contenders for the Derby. I'm against that, but it wouldn't totally shock me.
Yeah, his first race was pretty impressive. He
It was.
he was fast. He got pressured, and they were going fast, but he
Yep.
finished up like
Yep.
he'd
Like
been
a good
galloping
thing.
early. Yeah,
Yeah.
he ran that race like he looked like a good thing,
Mhm.
but those kind of horses always tend to get overbet the next
Yes.
time out, and you don't know if they're going to go two turns.
Yep.
But certainly he's answered. It wasn't like he galloped off a soft pace or anything.
Oh,
That horse Reclamation, who's in this race, came back and won his next
yeah.
out. Right, he
Yeah.
looked good. And so he beat a good horse and just destroyed him. Right, so
Yep.
he's got that same horse inside of him again.
Mhm.
That seems to have only one way of going. So I don't know
Right. And
what.
I think this is a total chance of a meltdown. I mean, the inside three are gonna go. And you're going to have these horses on the outside that have nothing to do but trying to send to get position. They don't necessarily have to go to the front, but they're going to have to send to try to not be on the parking lot. So it just is going to heat up this race. And like if the number two can, Decode can fight off Baffert and that horse to his inside, take pressure, middle of the race, and then draw off again, we're looking at a superstar.
Yeah, I think. I mean, to me, if yeah, that's it. If he can repeat his last, and he could be a monster. And like you said, he's probably a monster. Just we're not sure about how far he wants to go. But
Right.
I don't think you can conclude from that first race he can't go longer. It's just you can't
No.
conclude that he can at a short price. You got to be against it, right?
Yeah, it's going to be a short price, Speightstown. I mean, yes, there's a few examples of them routing. One of those is a Baffert, and he can get horses to do things most can't. But, you're talking about a trainer that doesn't have a lot of experience, first race routing, taking pressure against this level. I mean, that's a big step up for a horse.
Yeah. It does seem like the Baffert horse could trip out, though. I don't think they're going to go with those two. He could settle in behind him and
Hmm.
trip out. Now, if he could get sucked into a hot pace too. But I will say one thing about him. Looking at the workouts, the one place you can see any Baffert horse, they get all their workouts on XBTV. That's
Yep.
the one barn you can see them all in. I looked at all his 3-year-olds, and like Litmus Test was not training well, so I'm not
No.
surprised he didn't ship.
Yep.
Butane has been training well, so
Yep.
and he does look like a horse who wants longer. I thought, looking at his races. So to me, between the two favorites, I think both of them are a little scary. One, just Decode, I don't know what he is, but I'm willing to try to beat him. The Baffert, I'm not sure he's a third stringer type. He's training well, and I think he's meant to go longer based on the way he runs. So I have a little more respect for him, I think, than you do. And I don't think he needs to be on the lead at all. I think he can sit off. He's a little bit more of a grindy type. So
Yeah.
but again, I think he's going to get overbet, but I'm not licking my chops against those two quite as much as you are, probably. Although am high on Rancho Santa Fe. He looked like a good horse in his first few starts, and then he
Yep.
got just a horrible ride
Yep.
from Giro. That was about as bad a ride. And you notice Giro's not riding him.
Yep.
He and Cox, I think, have parted
Yeah.
ways, which is
They've
probably
parted
good for Brad Cox, I think. And
100%. 100%.
Flavian Pratt is like so much better than Giro for this horse, but he'll
Hmm.
probably push the price down. But I expect that horse to run much better. Of the rest of the horses, to me, he's the one I like the most of all the ones you talked about. But Silent Tactic, I agree with you. He comes out of that same race. I don't think he got quite as bad a trip as Rancho Santa Fe did, but he draws a tougher post.
Right.
And he doesn't have Pratt riding him. So I mean, for all those things, to me, Rancho Santa Fe is the play in here probably, as long as he doesn't get down below double-digit odds, which he might. But to me, he's kind of obviously the one I'm interested in here is the 4. But both the 2 and the 3 could be, serious contenders for the Derby, and they could be flameouts. I mean, but it's worth betting against him at this point, right? Let him prove it to me in this race, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, if Litmus Test was in this race, I was thinking Butane might be a bet because he might be the forgotten Baffert, and he drifts up, 5, 6, 7 to 1. I'd be much more willing to take that chance. Can the horse stretch out? I'm maybe a little more skeptical on the stretch than you are, but I thought, if he drifts up, I would take that chance. But I'm just afraid that both the 2 and the 3 are going to be at 2 to 1, and they're just not going to offer much value. I just think those are the kind of horses I like to play against, and I tip my hat if they win.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the right approach. Yeah, I would have loved the 5 to stay in because off the works, I didn't like him at all. And and off the works, Butane looks really good. So, like you said, that would have bumped the price up and made this more interesting because I would have been totally against him off the way he'd been training. For a Baffert horse, he did not look ready. And I think it's clear he wasn't because that's
right.
why.
That's why he's not coming. But, he was definitely the one that was more well meant in this spot, was getting, the
he's more accomplished by far.
More accomplished is getting their top jock, and to fly out. And that's why I just thought the 3 might get a little buried there. I'm afraid a little bit that the Rancho Santa Fe is going to get bet with just those connections and, seeing the 2 wins on the page. But I hope we can get double digits, but I'm a little skeptical.
Yeah, maybe not. But he was drubbed 3. There's like 3 or 4 horses in that race that finished ahead of him, right? So.
They're all here. There's 4 in this race.
Yeah. So I think that'll help counterbalance it. I'm hoping for 10 to 1 maybe, and I think that's definitely some value there. But we'll see. You never know. But with a Baffert in here with the code off that monster effort.
Yeah.
And there's other horses that are going to take money like Strategic Risk. Given the connections, will take some money. Soldier and Diplomat, we didn't mention him, but that's Asmussen horse isn't bad. I might think he might be distance challenged and the post hurts him, but he's a nice horse. He'll take some money probably. He's 12 to 1 in the morning line, but I think he'll get, he'll take some money. So
yeah, and he's definitely another horse. I think, like you, I think he's a 1-turn horse. These Army Mules don't really want to stretch, but I think this horse is talented. It might be when they decide to cut him back, he be one of those in stakes races that'd be interested when they figure that out.
Yeah, like a Pat Day horse. Yeah, I don't know if he wants to be he's not. I don't think he's a 2-turn horse. We'll see. I'd be surprised.
Agreed.
But Asmussen 3-year-olds, they typically run their races. So.
They do.
All right, so the bet in here, you're going to be trying to beat the favorites. You've got some price horses, so you're going to mix it up. So in this sequence, what is the bet you're most anxious, excited about? And it could be,
I kind of mentioned it earlier. It's just hooking up in doubles the Asmussen Vital Mind in race 9. Into and out of that race. I'll in a contest, I'll have 2 entries. So, it's possible I could do one going in and one coming out. A lot of it will depend on what prices I'm getting, looking at will pays and probables. But I'm just kind of interested in tying that horse up. And, getting some of these value horses like the 11 here, Silent Tactic, back in the I like that McPeak horse in the Spitfire, the 4 in race 6. Some of those value type horses I'm interested in, and then the Archibred in the mare stake. Those are horses I really want to get some of my chips out on the table and see if I can get 1 or 2 of those right.
So, like on that the 9th race with Vital Mind, the 5 horse, that was the one chalk horse that you're kind of leaning on. The way you try to leverage that is you're kind of looking at adjacent races. Is there some value that you can bet in the doubles or picks, maybe even a pick 3 across that
Yes.
race, right?
Yes. In a contest, you can't use a pick three. And I don't want to be too contest focused, but, on a horse that, might potentially be even money or sub even money, if I'm going to put all my money at risk, I want to get more than even money back. So that's where I'll be looking at the doubles and, splitting between, one or two horses that I think makes some sense.
But you're singling that 5 Vital Mind. You're not like
Yes.
backing up or anything. Everything goes through him, but you're trying to get the value in some of the other legs.
Yeah, I mean, look, there might be like a backup in cash, do it all through it, and then maybe in cash use your him over Vital Mind, that I have some insurance that if I
There
get
you
knocked
go. There
out,
you go.
something like that. Yeah.
You want to be singing along with the choir if that horse wins.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I mean, I'm on the podcast and you make a good case for it. I'm going to be really crying. I'm going to get knocked out of the contest and him wins and Vital Mind runs second. So I'll definitely have some kind of hedge on.
All right. So anything else on that before I get there? We did get a question from listeners. I wanted to ask you that question before we leave. Anything else? So before we get to that,
I think that covers it.
All right. So the question was 10 Strike Racing has a first time starter debuting in the first race, the 3-horse Brother Energy. It's a homebred, has Marshall Graham down as the breeder. What's the scoop on that horse?
So that family, the mother Lucky Move was a New York bred stake winner. Router didn't break its maiden till late in the 3-year-old year. We have a nice filly out of that mare, Lobby Rendezvous, that we think potentially might develop into a stake horse. She broke her maiden at Saratoga on opening day last year, so she breaks her maiden in late July as a 3-year-old. To me, it's just a late developing family. This horse has trained better. I think if you'd asked us 4 months ago, we didn't think the horse was that much. But in each of the last 3 or 4 months, it's gotten better and better with his training, which makes sense based on the family. I don't think this is a first out winner, but I think this horse could be okay down the road. I don't think Friday's the day to break its maiden on debut.
Yeah, it looks like it's bred to definitely go long, right? By blame out of looking at Lucky
bred
Mare
to go long is a little
by Marshall Graham, Mr. Likes long races.
Absolutely, it's a little stockier, maybe a little sprintier than her sister and mother, but we're debuting long, so that should tell you something there.
Yeah, and you are in for a tag, so 75,000. It's a pretty big tag, but would you be upset if you lost the horse? Are you?
Well, I mean, it's hard to know now. I mean, if it developed into a nice horse, certainly, but we think 75 is more, or, a fair price for if somebody wanted to take it, we'd probably think that's a good trade at this point. I mean, we're in the claiming game and know how it works. I mean, you got to put them in the right spots. I think the chances are low somebody takes the horse, but I think the odds are that'd be a solid sale, but it definitely somebody would have to take their time with it if they claimed it off of us.
All right. Well, good. You got the scoop on that horse. Wait till they stretch that one out, and then let it develop a little bit, and you might have a winner on your hands. Probably not going to win on debuts. What I'm hearing.
Yeah, no, that horse is still a maiden come July, August, as it gets a little later in the 3-year-old year. I mean, that'll start to be go time. And, we bet Lobby Rendezvous. We knew it would take her. I think it was her 6th start when she broke her maiden. She ran really well the race before. And
wasn't that like the first race of the meet or something? Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
He won the first race at Saratoga this summer. Yeah.
That's right. And look, we backed up the truck and we all had our meet right there.
You weren't going to get shut out that Saratoga after the first race.
No, and it's always nice to be leading owners after the first race.
Yeah, I remember there was a couple of highly touted, big barn horses in that race
there were.
too. Yeah, that must have been sweet. That for an owner, that had been fun.
Yep.
All right. Well, I think that pretty much sums it up. I want to thank you, Clay, for joining us, and thank all the listeners out there for tuning in. That will conclude show number 348 of the Sport of Kings podcast. Good luck this weekend, and please enjoy the Brooklyn Boogaloo Blowout. Cheers.
Luck.